Well, we have a new movie from Bad Robot with the end of Oak Street. Let's talk about it this week on Beware of Spoilers. Good morning, evening. It's evening, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. Annoyingly, my recorder is a little greasy because one of my pill containers opened and the fish oil that was in it has leaked. And if you need a sign that I'm getting old, well, there it is. What we're here to talk about is not my slow march toward death, as we all are. We're here to talk about dinosaurs eating people, which is what the end of Oak Street's about. Let's just get this out of the way at the top. I went back and forth about what to rate this movie, because realistically, I don't think there's anything in it that's aggressively bad. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of fundamentally okay. So I think quintessentially, if a movie is fundamentally okay and nothing special, I'd say it's a 3. And here's the thing that we want to, talk about with this. I think Anne Hathaway has a good performance, and this is what Peter said to me when I told him, like, oh, wow, the reviews are surprisingly good. I didn't read any of the reviews. I was like, oh, wow, that's impressive. Ewan McGregor is good. Anne Hathaway is good. I think what it is that keeps this movie from being something that I'm ever going to revisit is that we use the word that it serves too many masters, but when I say that, I feel like that kind of is racist. I don't know, maybe. But that is kind of the issue here, is that there are too many competing things in this movie trying to make a compelling movie. And it's short, which is good. Like, at an hour and a half, an hour 40, it's actually a pretty tight movie, and it keeps the pacing moving. You're kind of forced into, to keep going. But there are too many subplots in the movie that's this short, where the movie is about a town that gets sent back in time 200 million years and is suddenly surrounded by dinosaurs. I think the biggest mistake this movie makes is that, very much so, there's a point where it kind of feels a lot like, if you ever read Stephen King's Under the Dome, it feels a lot like that. Shit starts going off the rails. There's a building on fire and the fire is spreading and there's no fire department to put it out. So, like, this fire is just creating this ticking clock. I'm like, okay, well, we have to get out of here before the fire consumes the entire town. And then we're just kind of sitting here with our thumbs up our asses as these dinosaurs go through. And it's like, okay, that's an interesting thing. But I think what this movie is missing is kind of like the town as an entity. If you're going to do something where it is this whole town gets sent back in time randomly, it's like, okay, great. Like, this whole town is going to get sent back in time, but I need to feel like the town matters more. Like, we know about the neighbor, we know about the immediate family, we know about the old lady who is like an editor of her author husband's books, and then, Anne Hathaway's books, and then you have a librarian. But, like, outside of that, there's really no one there that you care about. And it's like, there are points where it's like, you'll go through these panning shots, and it's just like people being eaten in the streets, and it's like, yeah, but I don't care about any of these people because none of them have ever been established. And something like this, I feel like, would be better served as a mini-series of sorts, where it is like you're stuck in they get sent back in time, there's no way for them to come forward, and you can get that, the town has to come together in this moment. That doesn't happen. The other weird thing is, it's very strangely set in 1983, and there's no real explanation for that, which is a little strange. Like, you would think that, like, there'd be something that you need to, like, some reason why the movie had to be set in 1982. And they don't really give a good enough reason as to why that is. There's nothing in this movie that couldn't make it set right now, especially considering very early on everyone gets sent right back in time. It's just one of those things that I'm like, why was that the decision you made? And I think it comes down to, it's like, Bad Robot very clearly exists because it's trying to emulate Amblin, and like, there's this weird thing that Hollywood has for the 80s where it's like, we got to try and, recreate the 80s, and, it's just kind of like, I don't understand why we had to spend so much time with it. Like, oh, it's 1982 too. And for the movie to start out and kind of have like this weird thing where it's like the son broke this other kid's arm and the brother of the kid wanted to kill him. And then, like, that kid shows up briefly, but not enough. And it's like the girl they're all kind of creeping on is in the movie, too. And I think that my biggest problem with it is the ending. The idea that, like, the whole movie kind of is irrelevant at the end of the day because, everyone gets their happy ending in a way that it doesn't feel earned. By definition, it's not earned. It's pure luck that it works out the way it does. Like, it's plot convenience and luck, and that's not a good way to resolve the plot of a movie. You need to spend some time and actually like, okay, like several characters die. That like this is a big deal. These characters are dead. But like the idea that like, oh well, and now we're just gonna, bring them back. It's just kind of a weird thing where it's like, oh, well, we saved them by calling ahead. Like, it's just kind of a weird thing. And it's like, what? Okay, sure. I feel like there's a lot that's going on in this movie that's not really all that great. But there is a good amount of dinosaur action that is good. Like, the idea of, like them going through and they know they have a good idea with suburban dinosaurs because of the amount of establishing shots of dinosaurs wandering around a suburb, and they know what they have, and they know that's the draw of the movie, and it works. And again, it's like the divorce aspect of it, where it's like this whole argument that permeates the entire movie. Like, it all ends up being for nothing because like the fundamental issues that go into the divorce conversation that we see before they go back in time, those fundamental issues still exist after. And we see throughout the movie that it's like these are like the draw for Anne Hathaway to leave has been there for a long time. And the idea of like her wanting to get out of this marriage, out of this family, and go off and be her own person is something that exists far beyond what we see when they go back in time. And that's kind of the thing that I look at with this, and I'm like, that's a weird choice. That's like, okay, well, now they're back. And what it does is it creates this weird situation where it puts it entirely on him as the cause of the divorce. The idea that the divorce is only happening because he's the problem, and now they got this other version back. But because she has now moved past it's just kind of a really weird way to resolve that whole thing that they spend a lot of the movie on. And I feel like if you cut that and put in dynamics within the town, the movie would have been better served. But also you could have, cut that and just kept it this family survival story, and that would have been better too. It's because you're spending all this time with frankly nonsense. It just and it also doesn't blend because like there are the scenes where, the two of them are getting into it over the divorce. And there's one scene that I was watching and I'm like, this is just comically ridiculous. I'm trying to nail this thing to the wall. This board over a window, and neither of them are holding it where it wouldn't just fall to the ground. And I'm like, okay, very clearly this is already stuck up there. Like, and just neither of you doing it. And she's hammering it, and I'm like, she hit the nail maybe twice. Okay, sure, whatever. And it's just like little things like that I was like, all right, whatever. But the idea that like he's gonna go out and have that, that solid like, I'm gonna go out there and, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm gonna go out there and I forgot where I was going with that. Idea that the everything is healed at the end of this movie is kind of a little silly. Oh, that's it. Like that was what I was going with this. The idea that I'm sorry, I'm very tired tonight. Tomorrow I'm having extreme dental work done. But the idea that he is watching, we're getting these glimpses into this divorce. It's not dissimilar from the problem that I had with Shazam, where it's like, Billy and Shazam feel like two different characters. Like, I get putting aside your differences in this situation for, the family and making sure that everyone gets out of this alive. I totally get that. But I feel like we're getting two different versions of both the characters depending on what scene it's in. And it's not even like I feel like the entire divorce argument with the book and all of that that happens overnight right before the kids sneak out, like that's a conversation you can table until you get out of the situation. Like it's an exposition argument, and I can't stand when that happens, especially in a situation like this. But that's a situation that you can definitely just table that and be like, we'll deal with this when we figure out how to get home or figure out what our new status quo is going to be going forward. And that's kind of the thing. It's like this whole thing where it's like, okay, we're going to batten down the hatches. We're going to be stuck in the house. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do about water and food? And I'm like, this is, this is a serious thing that you got to kind of address. I think the problem is the movie in general never really grapples with a lot of the key issues that come along with what this is. And I'm not saying that the movie needs to be a logistics movie about like, okay, well, how do we keep this alive? But if it's a story of a neighborhood that gets sent back in time, you got to play with that in some way, even if you are doing it as an attack on suburban, the suburban aspect of it, which I think would have been an interesting angle for them to take, but they don't take it. Where, because, excuse me, everyone's so self absorbed and everyone's so up their own ass about doing their own thing and not caring about other people. That's something that could have been an interesting angle to explore, especially using, and that would have used the setting of the 80s, where you do have this diaspora from the cities and you go out to the suburbs. And they just don't play with that. And that's kind of a problem. That's kind of, one of my biggest problems with the movie is that you can't you can't say you're not gonna play with the politics of the situation when the politics of the situation 100% would impact what happens in this movie. Like, you can't lay that groundwork and then be like, "And we're not going to touch it." Like, laying this rail down, it's the third rail, don't touch it. But no, you do have to play with that aspect. The idea that like this is a town of people. It's like, oh, this new girl just moved in. We're just gonna awkwardly stare at her. Oh, she goes to private school. Oh, okay. Like and they touch on it at times. The idea that like she's ashamed of her husband delivering pizzas on the side. Like the fact that she's ashamed of that is one of those things where it's like, why don't we just he's gotta take the sign off every time when he comes home and put the sign in the garage so she doesn't have to look at it, and it's like, why do that? Like, I don't get it. It's just silly. Like, sorry, some guy was I'm already going over the speed limit, and this guy is up my ass. Okay, so the issue with this whole situation is they needed to play more with the suburban aspect, and because they didn't, that's kind of my big problem with it. Is that they introduced this interesting, they introduced this interesting idea, but don't do enough with it. But I think it's a good place to wrap up for today. We might be back next week. I'm not 100% certain. Like I said, I'm having dental work done tomorrow, on Friday, and then I'm having dental work done again the following Wednesday. So we might be back, but I don't 100% want to say yes or no because it's going to depend on recovery. So we might be back next week. Worst case scenario, we'll be back the following week, for Coyote versus Acme, and there's another big movie coming out that week. But we'll do both of those in 2 weeks if we're not back next week with something else. And until then, have a great rest of your week.
Before you go, I also write fiction. My newest novel, Succession Planning, is out on August 28th, available both in paperback and an ebook. It follows a journalism grad stuck managing a store while the owners wage a quiet war over who takes over the business. It's about ambition, inertia, and taking the easiest choice. The link is in the description. That's Succession Planning, out on August 28th.